Well, welcome everyone, and today we're having Jessica Porter, and let me meet a couple more people here. Here we go. Here we go. More people are coming. You're very popular. So Jessica is with us today, and I'm gonna just turn off my mic. I'm just gonna go ahead and let her talk.
All right. How long do I have, guys? An hour?
Yes, an hour. Yes.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm trying to see who's here. Let me look at the participants. Oh, some people I know. Some people I don't know yet. Hi, everyone. So I want to talk today. First of all, I want to talk about my tooth because I have a weird tooth, and you're going to be thinking, hi, Jean. You're going to be noticing it and going, what's wrong with your tooth? My tooth is doing something called resorption, and I'm going to get it replaced in like 2 weeks. I'm so excited. I can't even stand it. And apparently it, I don't know when it started, but it probably started from hitting it at one point, maybe as a kid, because all the bone has become ankylose. And ankylosed bone is, rigid and fused into the jaw, and it won't move. So when I had orthodontia 17 years ago, they tried to move that tooth and it wouldn't move. And they warned me, they said, this tooth is going to start to destroy itself. And I said, well, how long is that going to take? And they said, a couple of years. You might as well just get it replaced now. And I said, well, I'm willing to take my chances. And it took 17 years, but sure enough, overnight, it started doing that. So just FYI, it's not kale. All right. So who here, by a show of hands, let me go to gallery view. Anyone here? Oh, many of you aren't on video. Okay, who here, and if you can raise your hands in the chat function, has experienced hypnosis before, has experienced hypnotherapy? Okay, Jeannie has her hand up in the box. Anyone else want to put up their hand saying that they've had hypnotherapy or hypnosis? Zulma Pereira, love that last name, my Spanish teacher who was originally from, is it Madagascar? That's Portuguese? Or a Pam has had it. Spanish, Madagascar is Spanish. Anyway, my favorite Spanish teacher had your name, and Portuguese. Kenneth has not had hypnosis. Okay, so most of you have not experienced hypnosis before. Well, my goal here today is to just introduce you to a modality that is incredibly powerful. And what I've discovered, and has weird juju in the world, like a weird reputation, so it is very useful to deconstruct some of the misconceptions. One of the things I've discovered in the times that I've taught, either on the cruise or at camps, is that people eating really healthy food are constantly changing. That's what happens when we eat plant-based food primarily, is that our whole body becomes more flexible, more resilient. Emotionally, we begin to discharge. We begin to go inward and self-reflect as balance is restored in our bodies and minds. And so when I've done hypnotherapy with people at the camps, at summer camps, macrobiotic summer camps on the cruise, I find that these tremendous shifts can occur because the person I'm working with, eating well and already being on a healing journey, because obviously you wouldn't, commit to eating in a healthy way if you didn't realize you were going to improve things. We see some really powerful results. So I wanted to explain this modality to you and really dig into it so you have a good understanding of what it is and what it is not and what it's capable of doing, in case you ever want to use it, whether it's with me or any other hypnotherapist. And right now, everything's on Zoom, so you could actually reach out to any hypnotherapist in the world at this point. It's actually a good time. So I'm going to share my screen. I just have to open share screen. Okay, I'm going to share something with you in just a second. Can you still see me? I'm still there. I have sort of an apology before I open it. I created something called Hypnosis for Actors, which is a course now run online, which helps actors with learning lines, audition anxiety, building a character. And it's a really great thing. And I've created a PowerPoint presentation for them. Two things. The PowerPoint presentation I'm going to use today is that one. So it's specifically aimed towards actors, but obviously all we need to do is make one shift from actor to regular human being in terms of some of the specific suggestions I make. And I will be clear about them when they come up. But second, I realized the one that I used originally is no longer available to me in my PowerPoint. I just checked today, and all I have is a draft of a subsequent one that I did, and it's only like 75% complete. So I may not be able to use images to explain the last sort of 10% of this lecture, but it will be fine. We will go there. I just want to prepare you for that. All right, so. Okay. Welcome to your mind. Welcome to your mind. So it's really important when you do hypnosis with somebody to not only have a rapport with the client, but explain hypnosis to them. Because if the client doesn't understand what they're doing, first of all, it can seem like this weird juju, and then suddenly everyone's thinking about all the television and movies that they've seen that have used hypnosis sort of irresponsibly. And second, the client can't help themselves heal. But when you understand the tool, then you can use it more actively. Okay, so in hypnotherapy, well, in many modalities, we believe that we're functioning basically from two different minds at the same time. We have the conscious mind, which is just chattering away all day. The conscious mind speaks your native tongue to you. It gives you sort of your unsolicited editorial opinions. Meanwhile, the subconscious mind is inside, doing all sorts of different things, and usually silently. Subconscious mind doesn't really feel the need to report to you unless something goes wrong. Now, if we were to break down the power differential between these two minds, we believe that 5 to 10% of your personal power is running through your conscious mind. Now, obviously, you're aware of the conscious mind much more than 5 to 10% of the time. This power differential is not a reflection of how much time you spend in the conscious mind or the subconscious mind, but it is a way of understanding how much power each mind has. So your subconscious mind, think of it as like if you are an iceberg, the conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg, and the subconscious mind is everything else that's submerged. And obviously, like the Titanic got into trouble, not hitting the top of the iceberg, but hitting the bottom of it. Like the bottom of the iceberg is what matters. So we're going to talk about the conscious mind for a second. In order to kind of get it out of the way, we need to understand what the conscious mind does so we can sort of dismiss it. And hypnosis is all about going into and activating the subconscious mind. The first thing the conscious mind handles is analytical thinking. So analytical thinking is figuring out, problem solving. You can't change the way you eat unless you understand, oh, I'm going to shift from a steak to brown rice. Where do I get brown rice? Why am I doing that? All sorts of analytical questions that come up in our lives. Balancing our checkbook, figuring out Zoom, which I'm sure at the beginning of the pandemic was something for most of us, was like you had to apply some analysis. It wasn't intuitive. You don't like feel your way through Zoom. You have to figure it out with your analytical mind. So this is a very, very important part of the mind. But I like to think of it as sort of the computer part of the mind that you take down off the shelf, boot it up when you need it, and then put it away. It's not necessarily a place to run your whole life from. And in fact, there's a saying, analysis paralysis. I mean, you hear these stories about people going to therapy for years, talking about the same problem and analyzing it and even understanding it. But that doesn't necessarily make a shift in the subconscious mind, which can be very, very frustrating. Where am I? What's the next one? Oh, come on. Oh, I can do it like that. Okay. So this is for actors, like I said, how do you use analytical thinking in your career? But I would ask you, how do you use analytical thinking in your life? Are you a very analytical person? There are certain professions that are profound, or it's so weird to say profoundly analytical because analysis isn't necessarily profound, are strongly analytical, like accountants, lawyers, surgeons. I mean, you must be on top of the actual physical mechanical game in order to succeed at what you're doing, unlike an artist or a musician or a poet or a therapist, who can perform from more of a subconscious place. I wouldn't want to go to an intuitive accountant. I don't want someone saying to me like, it feels like you owe the feds $5,000 this year. Maybe you should send in your estimated taxes. I don't want that. So it's important to sort of get in touch with how much analytical thinking you use, not in order to do anything about it, but just to see who you are. Okay, the second thing the conscious mind does is rational thinking. Now, rational thinking is not sort of, be rational, Jessica. Rational thinking is the human being's need, and we all have this need, to rationalize our own behavior. We must understand why we do what we do. If we don't have a story for our own behavior, whether or not it's true, that's very problematic to lose your capacity to rationalize. Like that's like a mental health situation. So, but like I said, rationales that we produce for ourselves are not necessarily the truth. So, a Democrat rationalizes how they vote that way, and a Republican rationalizes how they vote that way. And it's really interesting to watch the world be less and less tied to facts or care about history, because we are unmooring from like traditional and collective rationales. And what we're becoming subject to is just the individual's rationale being all we need in order to justify our behavior. Now, sometimes it works and it's harmless, but we'll see after decades and generations of this sort of narcissism that we have as a collective, where that gets us. There may be, as they say in macrobiotics, the bigger the front, the bigger the back. There may be a very big good side to it as well. There's always balance. How do you rationalize your reality? Personally, professionally, how do you explain your behavior to yourself? Those are big questions that I don't expect you to think up right now, but you may have stories about yourself like, oh, well, I'm macrobiotic and I live in California and I'm a Canadian and that's why I do this. I'm a Capricorn. I was born in 1966. I'm a child of the 70s. I mean, I'm not a millennial. All sorts of ways we explain ourselves. Now, analytical thinking and rational thinking are like kissing cousins. We're often analyzing a situation and then rationalizing what we've decided. And that's a very strong connection in the mind, and that's fine. The thing is, in our culture, we're actually encouraged. I have a bathing suit on. So I'm in Palm Springs. It's 120 degrees. Just FYI, the context for where I am is I'm in Palm Springs. Let me just see if I can check the weather right now. It was 120 yesterday. What is it right now? 117 degrees. 117 degrees. So we rationalize, and we're encouraged to hang out in this function of the mind. Like the news, the politicians would often just like us, sitting in our lazy boys, analyzing and rationalizing, analyzing and rationalizing, analyzing and rationalizing. And you could happily spend the rest of your life just, not happily, but using these functions of mind and only these functions of mind and feel like you're a responsible citizen, you're up on the news, you care about the right things. That's all that's required here. But when we go back to the idea that the conscious mind is on its best day, only 5 to 10% of your personal power, this is not a powerful place to come from mentally. It's necessary, but it's not the big kahuna. It's not the whole burrito. I see you, Elaine. I see you laughing at me. Okay, so the third thing that the subconscious mind handles is willpower. Willpower, very interesting, because in our culture, we have a story about willpower, especially in the United States. And that story is, if you don't have enough willpower, you're a loser. If you can't manage it, just use more willpower. It's as simple as that. That's the story. Sure, it's not just an American story, but it's very Western. Even Nike has, for the last 40 years had the just do it mantra. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Like, come on, you can just do it. Well, for anyone who's ever struggled with an addiction or changing a habit or trying to change someone else, or we understand that our willpower has limits. And look where it lives. It actually lives in the conscious mind, which is on its best day, only 10% of your power. So it doesn't actually make sense that if you don't have willpower, you're a loser. We'll talk about that in a second, but you can just keep applying, and there's this endless supply of willpower, or that it's that effective. Those are not true. So why do we even have willpower, and why is it in the conscious mind? Well, in hypnotherapy, we believe that willpower, when you want to make a change in your life, when you want to go from direction A to direction B, willpower is the energy that will make that shift. But you must be programmed to succeed in the new direction, or on the subconscious level, or it won't happen. And willpower cannot push it that far. It can only do that. That's what willpower does. And I'll have people in classes that I teach say, well, I ran a marathon. That took a lot of willpower. And I say, I'm sure it did. And I'm impressed, because I happen to know quite definitively I will never run a marathon. But let me ask you a couple questions about that marathon. First of all, did you just wake up one morning and go to the beginning of the marathon and run 26 point something miles like that? Or did you train? Oh, obviously I trained. I've trained for months. It took me a year. And I was running 13 miles a day at the end. Okay. So you didn't just run a marathon. It was something that you built on, correct? Yes. Well, that's a habit that you created. And training all happened within the subconscious mind. Second, did you imagine crossing the finish line? Oh my God, yes. Every single night when I went to bed, I could see it. I could see it. I could see it. Okay. Your imagination in your subconscious mind. My third question is, did you grow up in a home where you were told you could accomplish your goals? Where you were encouraged to accomplish your goals? Now, 9 times out of 10, the person thinks about it and goes, yes. I was not hindered from my own, I was encouraged to succeed. Now, once in a while, someone will say, no, I grew up in a home where I was told I couldn't do anything. So then what you have is subconscious programming they got in childhood, and they're actively working against it. That's more than willpower. That's a whole other steam that they're getting from their inner being. So I think we suffer from a misdefinition of willpower in this culture. And these 3 buddies, willpower and analytical thinking. Oh shoot, I'm missing something on my computer that is making this really difficult. Hold on. Oh, why doesn't this have 3 arrows on it? It should have 3 arrows going, one, like a triangle. Imagine a triangle between these 3 things. I call it like the Bermuda Triangle of the conscious mind. Because what people do is they analyze their problems. Oh, I smoke. And guess what? Smoking is going to kill me. I got to rationalize that. I need to quit smoking because it's going to kill me, or because my wife is nagging me, or because I'm coughing all the time. and then they apply willpower, and willpower generally fails. Now, because we have to rationalize every single thing that happens to us, we have to rationalize our own failure. And when willpower fails, which it should, because smoking is a very pernicious habit that exists on the subconscious level, and it's very difficult to change habits without your subconscious mind being involved somehow, especially when they're smoking. When willpower fails, the story that your average person tells themselves is, I'm a failure. There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I need to try this again. And maybe they try it again and they go into the Bermuda Triangle of the conscious mind again, but it generally ends up failing them. And this is really unfortunate, because if you're living in this Bermuda Triangle of your own conscious mind, you're getting increasingly disempowered and increasingly demoralized about your own potential and your own power, and where your power is actually coming from. You're continuing to double down on the lie that your power comes from this like top down conscious mind, like wrestling things into place. And it just doesn't. Where have you applied willpower in your life? Where has it succeeded? Where has it failed? How are you using it now in your career or your life? So this is really helpful when you're someone seeing a hypnotherapist, because hypnosis is very good with smoking cessation. It has really good track record with weight loss, although I don't work on weight loss, but just in terms of changing and developing new habits in general. And it's always this huge aha moment, because I worked on smoking for a long time, and I actually quit smoking myself using hypnotherapy when I was 20. And I'd smoked 2 packs a day for 6 years. When people hear this information about this way of changing themselves that they've been engaged in for years and years and years, and you finally say, this doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody, and it's never gonna work. And I'm gonna take you to the place where change actually comes from. It's like, such relief, and they take themselves off the hook, which is in and of itself very healing. Finally, the last thing in the conscious mind is up here in the sort of northwest corner, temporary memory. We don't need to talk about temporary memory much. Suffice it to say that there is permanent memory and temporary memory. The permanent memory is more in the subconscious, temporary more in the conscious. We just don't have enough time to go into it. And it doesn't matter that much for our purposes today. Okay, is this where we are? Yeah. Let's talk about the subconscious mind. Permanent memory. We have a record of every single thing we've ever experienced, real or imagined. Real or imagined. So we have a record of everything we've ever experienced. Do you believe that? I don't know if I actually do, frankly, because that's a big thing to say. But what I do know is that every time I've ever taken someone into hypnosis, every time currently right now I'm writing during the pandemic just 10 minutes a day about my life, and just going back into little things in my life, going back to childhood. And it's bringing up detail after detail after detail that there's no way I could have just generated in a conversation with somebody. By setting my timer and going into this place and going back to these memories, I'm amazed they just blossom like flowers. Every single time I've worked with somebody in hypnosis, the records that they can access in hypnosis are much deeper, much clearer, and often beyond the reach of the conscious mind. Now, I don't mean, hey, Jimmy, you lived in Australia when you were 5. Don't you remember? Like, it's not that these things are these locked boxes that we don't have access to. It's just that they're fuzzy. And well, although some people who have compartmentalized or been very traumatized may have locked boxes. But for most of us, it's just there can be like a lack of clarity. Like, tell me about 2nd grade. It's like, I don't know. But if I took you back in a hypnotic trance to the house you lived in, what your mother looked like at that point, what the route from school to your house, like how it smelled in the fall, all of that, or anything that's of any importance to you would come flooding back. So we have an extraordinary storehouse of memories. Now, I said we have a record of everything we've ever experienced, real or imagined. And this is one of the really cool things about the subconscious mind, is the subconscious mind makes no distinction between the real and the imagined. It doesn't care. That's why we go to movies. That's why we watch TV. We don't care. We're not sitting there in front of the TV being like, well, this never happened. Like, we allow ourselves to engage. And that's a very, very powerful thing. But before I talk about that, let's keep going. So memories, permanent memory. We have all these images in our heads, some good, some bad, some just benign. We carry records of all our experiences, like trees have rings. I always loved when we went to camp up in where we were in the last few years. I call it Strawberry because it was right near that town called Strawberry. But seeing the really big redwoods with all the rings, when you saw a trunk of a redwood, so amazing. So each ring has a feeling associated with it. Fear makes very strong rings. By using hypnosis, these rings can be dissolved and the feelings released. What I mean by that is, like I said, we have records in our body. And these records tend to compound themselves. In other words, if as a young kid or an infant even, I experienced tremendous fear, say my mother's sick and is away for 6 months, or I have an abusive parent or something, that will create profound tension in me. And I call that a ring. This is not a metaphor. This is just a metaphor. It's not physiological. I call that a ring of the tree. So once I have that, and I'm now like 8 months old, 9 months old, and I have this profound fear at the core of my being, I will actually find situations and experiences and people that feel that vibration, and I tend to recreate that vibration again and again and again if it got in really early and it was negative. We also have great experiences and memories, but the negative ones tend to dominate. They tend to be, they tend to start affecting the steering of the ship, and they take us places maybe that aren't that great sometimes, or have us like pick spouses that reflect the energy that we got from an original ring, or friendships, or do, our goals in life. If we don't release these bands of trauma, they tend to run our lives, like the law of attraction. Now, the great thing about hypnotherapy, we don't get rid of the ring. We don't like destroy a memory. A memory doesn't end. What happens is we can go back to that ring of the tree and relax around it, and it just loses its charge. It just loses whatever negative energy that it's fitfully holding on to. And hypnosis works incredibly well in that regard, because that ring is in the subconscious. So yeah, you can do regular therapy and be functioning from the conscious mind and know about that ring. Even look down and go, oh my God, that thing happened to me. I know it happened to me. I'm sure it happened to me. I'm trying to wrestle with it happening to me. But until you go under to where that ring exists, you can't release the energy that it's carrying. But once you do release the energy that it's carrying, you'll never pick it up again. It's like the body won't even permit it. The subconscious mind is like, yay, I'm free. And you get out of jail. Is this all making sense? Does anyone have any questions? Like, I just want to pause for a second in case anyone wants to ask anything. I'm going to stop the share for a second. How are we doing in the chat? She got in. Someone was having a problem logging on. Okay. Any questions so far? All right, I'm going to keep going. Got a lot to cover. Thanks for your patience with me. Okay, that's it for actors. Okay, the next thing is the subconscious mind. Imagination. I just said that the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between the fact and fantasy, which is fantastic. Dreams are an example of this. You know how vivid your dreams are and how invested you are in your dreams, but none of it's actually happening. The imagination isn't just sort of like, oh, that's great, Jessica. Yeah, that's your imagination. The imagination is actually the big gun of our lives. It's the big gun of our minds. And in our Western culture, we actually, like I said before, call willpower the big gun of our minds. And we're like, you need more willpower. But the truth is, we need more to apply our imagination, especially from a hypnotic trance, from a deep state of relaxation, which basically hypnosis is a version of. The application of the imagination really starts to get balls rolling in your life in very powerful ways. And the people in this world that we honor the most, the people who push our culture forward, we don't call them like busy work, like busy bees or worker bees. We call them visionaries. Those are the people who have a vision of what's going to happen next. They have a vision of where they want to take the world, and they are applying their imaginations. And they don't grit their teeth and force people to go along with them. They share the vision. And by sharing the vision, lots of people start to move things in a new direction. So the imagination is insanely powerful, especially for actors. I mean, it's very powerful for all of us, but imagine for an actor, it's a big deal. You're basically projecting your reality inside yourself and into your life all the time, whether it's negative or positive. So think about that. How is your imagination working for you? Where are the places in your life where do you wake up in the morning and go like, God, it's going to be a really good day, or I'm so excited about this meal I'm going to cook, I can imagine it. So-and-so's coming over for lunch. I really hope we have a good conversation. You don't have to control it, but have a sense of how things are going to go. Anyone who's ever built anything, whether it's a business or a building or a family, has imagined those things before they come to fruition. Stephen Covey, in his books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says there's the first creation and the second creation. And the first creation is the visioning. So then we have to ask ourselves, how is your imagination working against you? Where is your imagination going like, oh God, this pandemic's going to go on forever, or, I'm going to lose all my money, or, where are you projecting into the future negativity? Because the thing about the body and the mind is that they're connected. And once you start getting the juices going mentally, you start getting all sorts of biochemical and physical responses, and you begin to create what you are worried about. So we have to harness that. Really, we want the imagination to be like a red carpet. Notice the images I'm using for actors with a limo. What we think, we become. The third thing in the subconscious mind are your habits. This is very, very important. We are learning machines. The subconscious mind is a learning machine. It picks up information, starts to gather new information, it puts it together, it makes associations, and it just gets better and better and better and better at whatever it's doing. And like a shark, it never stops. The subconscious mind is always refining and refining and improving and improving. Now, it improves bad habits, it improves good habits, and it improves purely utilitarian habits. I went through an experience where last year I stopped eating certain things for 3 months because I felt like my food was getting kind of wide. And I called it the Donald Trump diet. I hate to get political, but personally, I'm not into Donald Trump. And the Donald Trump diet involved not eating X, Y, and Z. And if I willfully chose to eat X, Y, and Z, I would have to donate to his campaign. And what was interesting is that A, it worked really well. But B, I realized when I got off the diet and ate some of the things that I had been so attached to before that I'd refrained from or abstained from for 3 months, the saying that went through my head, which I don't know that I'd ever heard before, but it came to me, was, we like what we do because we do it. In other words, we just enjoy the repetition of things. The subconscious mind likes to just do what it does, and it gets attached to whatever you have it do. So if your habit is running a mile a day, you're going to start enjoying running a mile a day. You're going to get better at running a mile a day. If your habit is doing cocaine, you're going to get better and better doing cocaine, which is not going to end up being a good thing. But this is one of the reasons that hypnosis is so effective with smoking cessation, weight loss, etc., is that the habits live in the subconscious mind. They do not live in the conscious mind. You can't think your way around a habit. You have to take the pathways of the habit and chop at them and create something new. You got to divert the river and create a new habit. And when you do it through the subconscious mind, it's very, very effective, provided that the person wants to change. You can't just hack away at a habit because you feel like you should. It needs to be something that you actually have energy around. Oh, this is where we're getting to the end. So what are some of your habits? Blah, blah, blah. The next thing in the subconscious mind are your emotions. The great thing about hypnotherapy, and I'm going to stop the share right now because I don't have any more images. One of the great things about hypnotherapy is that when you're in hypnosis, your emotions become very, very available to you. Which is lovely because they're the energy that generally needs to be moved for healing to occur, like repressed grief or repressed anger or, even repressed joy. The subconscious mind also is holistic. The subconscious mind sees like its perception. It's like a right brain perception. So everything is sort of connected. Everything makes sense with everything else. Macrobiotics has more of a right brain vision of the world, balance, antagonistic complementary opposites, and an embrace of paradox. And the right brain very much embraces paradox. So what did that have to do with emotions? Well, there was some connection that I can't remember right now. Anyway, so the next thing in the subconscious mind, imagine it under emotions, would be the protective mind. And the protective mind is a part of your mind that is, well, it's protecting you. It's a part of your mind that if you were to put your hand on a hot flame, you don't sit there and think like, oh, wow, that smells like flesh. What should I do? Your hand just recoils automatically. And this part of us, this highly protective part of us that drives cars, that, protects our children, it has a moral and emotional component too. And so I'm going to protect the programming that I got from my parents or the church or the mosque or the synagogue. And this flies in the face of one of the misconceptions about hypnotherapy, which is that a hypnotist can control his or her subject or client. And that's complete baloney. It's a great fantasy that works for TV and film. But if I were able to control other people, if you were able to control other people, you think that I'd be the only person who bothered to learn this or practice it professionally? Like we'd all be working it on Congress and the White House and our parents and our children and our lovers. It's just not the case. I mean, we're so unable to make people do things that McDonald's and, Burger King spend literally billions of dollars in advertising, and they know just to advertise to their target market. Like you don't even want people who, like us, who would never go there. You just aim it at your target market, and then even then they get that they can't actually step into your brain and force you to do something. In fact, I found that the only form of like force that you can do is once the whole food is in my body, then it actually affects my mind. It's one of the only things that actually, like I was saying, as a human, you can't actually just step into someone else's being and wrestle them into what you want to do. But food does actually step into our being. It is really powerful, not just physically, but hypnotically as well. So it's really important when people do hypnosis to understand that they are in control. And in fact, they're not just in mild control, they're in more control than they would be if they function from the conscious mind. And no hypnotist in the world is actually able to make anyone do anything that they don't want to do. Now, there are some cult leaders and stuff, that understand that if they incrementally move somebody from, oh, you want to do this? Well, maybe you want to do this. And then, I keep you here for a while and then maybe you want to do this. So you can abuse this function But even then, a cult leader is generally working with a population that wants to change, that wants to give their power to another person, that wants answers. And that is also what makes them vulnerable. So there is always consent when it comes to hypnosis. There's always consent. And it's not just like, well, he didn't give me my consent, so I just hypnotized him anyway. That's not going to happen. Okay, so imagine the subconscious mind full of all its goodies, the permanent memory, imagination, habits, emotions, and the protective mind. And now I want you to imagine that just outside of it, another ring outside of it, is a perforated line protecting the subconscious mind. And it actually exists in the conscious mind, so it's in that other circle. This perforated line is called the critical faculty. And the critical faculty is also a protective mechanism of the subconscious mind. It vets the information coming at the subconscious mind more than it vets, I mean, on a different level than, asking someone to do something to violate their own safety. So if I said to you, rain is wet, no one has a problem with that. So I was aiming information at your critical faculties, and it's a perforated line, remember, so it just went in and you all went, rain is wet. That's my experience of rain. And you let those words penetrate your subconscious mind because it jives with your experience. But if I said, people who choose to eat healthy food are stupid, and like medicine has proven that food makes absolutely no difference on any level in your life, so good luck to you and great wasting your time, then I'm bringing some information to your subconscious mind that you'd be like, I don't think so. I disagree with that. And you would literally reject that information. That's what the critical faculty does. It's there to either permit, admit or reject new information. Now, this is good. We want a critical faculty. Without a critical faculty, we don't really have a sense of identity. We want to protect who we are in our subconscious mind. Otherwise, you could just snap your fingers and make a Democrat into a Republican, or a Republican into a Democrat, or someone, into a criminal. But it's also problematic because the critical faculty doesn't just protect us from stuff on the outside getting in, it also stops things from the inside getting out. And if we have programming or belief systems or trauma that doesn't work for us, that's like, that we keep hooking ourselves up on or hurting ourselves with, then the critical faculty becomes a problem because it defends it. Every single bit of programming that you got as a childhood, and even some later, came with like a little piece of critical faculty helping to lock it in place and to protect it. So the definition of hypnosis is the bypass of the critical faculty and the establishment of selected thinking. So a hypnotherapist is able to actually get past that perforated line that's protecting things and get in there and then introduce new suggestions into the subconscious mind and change things. If you want change, like I said, there has to be consent. You have to be on board. Now, this is really great. It's really great that hypnotists understand how to relax the mind in such a way that you can get sort of under that defense mechanism. But understand that you hypnotize yourself as well. You bypass your own critical faculty all the time. Daydreaming is a form of critical faculty bypass. Self-criticism is a form of critical faculty bypass. Watching TV, getting engrossed in a movie, reading a book, all those ways are just ways of stepping deep into your imagination and your memory and your emotions. And you're well beyond your critical faculty when you're deeply engrossed in those things. But generally, we don't do it with an understanding that we can, once we're in that place, heal ourselves. or change ourselves or move around the architecture of our lives. We don't use it that way. We just sell our critical faculty bypass to entertainment companies and say, oh, well, you handle it. You take care of my imagination. I want you to run it. Understand that if you don't have regular access to your own subconscious mind actively and decisively, like you know what you're doing with it, if you don't have access to your subconscious mind, A, remember that it's 90 to 95% of who you are. That's where most of your power is. But B, if you don't have access to it, it doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have access to it. In other words, just because we're not going inside and doing that work ourselves doesn't mean that we're not prey to other people getting in. In fact, we may be more vulnerable to other people getting in because we're not handling things ourselves or on guard of our own minds. There is a certain type of communication or certain type of individual that you guys need to know about, and it's what we call a waking hypnotist. An waking hypnotist is somebody who has automatic bypass of your critical faculty. They just get in there without swinging any pocket watch, without, introducing relaxation into the mix. And these people are people that we put in positions of authority. Anyone you in your life personally have put in a position of authority, it starts generally with your parents and teachers and doctors and politicians sometimes, or celebrities, anyone that you have personally put on a pedestal in your mind, almost everything they say goes straight to your subconscious mind. That's why a doctor saying, you have 3 months to live. Well, if I'm a good patient, I'm going to die on day 90 of that prognosis. If you can study almost every successful politician and look at their ability to bypass their critical faculty. Now, the thing about this country with two major parties is that generally that person has automatic critical faculty bypass of their base and really raises the hackles of the critical faculty of the other side of the political spectrum. So it's either getting past it or really, really, triggering the critical faculty saying, but it's rarely something in between, because most politicians have learned how to wield their hypnotic authority very well. Obama had different tactics than Trump, and Trump had different tactics than George W. Bush, and Clinton had different tactics, but you can really break it down into how they do it. I mean, the authority we give them does it as well, but politicians tend to be smooth and understand hypnosis intuitively in a lot of ways, good communicators. So, what I wanted to bring you guys today, and I know we have a few minutes for questions. I look like Einstein. My hair, first of all my gray is coming in. I haven't colored my hair for a while. It just looks like Einstein. So, what I wanted to introduce to you guys is that this tool is incredibly powerful. And considering you can access your imagination and sort of clear up any memories that are hooking you up, there's healing in relationships that can take place because the subconscious mind sees things holistically. The subconscious mind is very loving and very healing and wants everything to be better. Believe me, it's fundamentally positive. There's the application of the imagination and the creation of new things that are available to us. And especially when someone's in a healing crisis, the imagination is so critical, because if we're just sitting there listening to what the world says about our condition, or listening to what a doctor says about our condition, if it's not entirely 100% positive, and we don't step into the 95% of our own power and really go into profound relaxation and see our bodies healing and use our mind. I mean, they did a study with burn victims, and the people using hypnotherapy to help heal their burns healed 3 times faster than people who didn't. Because our mind has to be on board, especially the subconscious mind. I think there's a question. Sorry if I missed this. How does one access their own subconscious mind? Well, generally you're doing, interesting. generally you're doing it automatically. You're doing self-hypnosis automatically, whether you know it or not. You have access to your own subconscious mind, believe me. But how do you have access in a sustained way, in a therapeutic way? I would say I would investigate self-hypnosis recordings. You could also see a hypnotherapist and make a recording with that hypnotherapist so that you can continually repeat going into your subconscious mind for yourself with your own personal affirmations, if that's what you want to do. What I do often with people in hypnotherapy is that we do a session that is about unblocking the things getting in the way in their life, and it can take a little while to really assess that and then release them. But then often we end with a recording that person wants, and we generate the new suggestions together that are, the suggestions that are most effective and powerful for them. And then you repeat and repeat and repeat in this profound hypnotic trance. So my point is, you do access your subconscious mind all the time, whether you know it or not. Hypnosis is a totally natural state of mind that you go in and out of several times a day, but you're probably not doing it very consciously. You're probably not doing it in a sustained way because that requires some technique, and you may not be even doing it in a positive way. And those are sort of the purview of the hypnotist to help you do that, or self-hypnosis recordings that you can buy. I mean, I'm sure there's a million self-hypnosis recordings, or you can even make your own, but it's a little bit of a learning curve to make your own. What else do we have here? You say you don't have time to discuss short-term memory, but mine is shot. What can I do to help it? Jean, are you still here, Jean? Well, I would say, I would practice. Hi. I mean, there are actually exercises in practicing. I think one of the things about short-term memory, there's two things when I'm speaking to actors specifically that I talk about, because short-term memory is a big deal in acting. You got to learn your lines, and that's a commitment in short-term memory and sometimes permanent memory that's really significant. First of all, the belief that your short-term memory is shot is one of the biggest obstacles to making it stronger. That belief system can be really powerful. And there's lots of actors who believe like, oh, I'm bad at learning lines. And as soon as I hear someone say that, I'm like, be very careful. We need to get rid of that belief system. Second, I ask people if they smoke marijuana. I mean, that market is actors, and marijuana wrecks short-term memory. So I'm very frank in that population about that. And of course, the stoners are like, oh shit, they don't want to hear that, but it's a big deal. But I would say, if you're worried about your short-term memory, I would treat it like a muscle. I would treat it like a muscle. I would practice. I don't feel like the world that we live in right now actually requires much memorization from us. And I think if it is like any brain function, something is, you work it and it gets stronger. I think we have gotten really less inclined to do that, lazier about it. There are fewer incentives to do it, but you might want to, take 5 minutes a day. I'm a big proponent of setting a timer on things. And I'm amazed how much I can get done in life just 10 minutes at a time. So a 5-minute timer where you learn a phone number and you start to watch your own mind like commit things. Now, you might want to have it, what they have discovered about memory function as well is that the more meaningful the thing is, the more likely we are to remember it. So a phone number may be kind of a stupid place to start. You might want to try and remember a sentence and then a paragraph of a book that you love. But anything that helps you practice it. Will hypnosis help with the disconnect between what the body does and what it's supposed to do for health? That's a great, great question. Yeah, it can absolutely help. I mean, I can't say that you can, go from 0 to 60 on that. I find even with myself, I've been doing this for 30 years and I take sort of 3 steps forward and half a step back, and sometimes 3 steps forward and 2.5 steps back. Progress looks like this. Okay. It doesn't look like this. But absolutely, you know, here we are in a world where we are told again and again what we should do and the right thing to do and what is best for us. But the actual doing of it causes changes that will bring up emotional whiplash and some really big feelings sometimes. And then we're asked to maintain this momentum. And when I first was teaching macrobiotic classes a number of years ago, I would say, like, how much joy can you stand? How much consciousness can you stand? Because the more you eat whole foods, the more you're going to be in this like clear consciousness, which you are in no way equipped to handle if you grew up in their standard North American family eating standard North American food. So give yourself a break that there isn't some degree of like wobble as you expand or mild contractions after the expansions. All that said, hypnotherapy would be very good at getting at some of the blocks or some of the, you know, hurdles that you keep coming up against when you want to do X, but you find yourself not fully committing yet or doing Y. Can I private contact you if I don't? Yes. I mean, for anyone who wants to contact me, I just started a website that says, it's called jessicaporterhypnotherapy.com. And feel free to like reach out to me, and or you can just reach out to me at jessicathehipchick@gmail.com. And you'll be like, honey, you need help with your hair. Jessicathehipchick@gmail is my email address, and jessicaporterhypnotherapy.com. It's kind of a work in progress, the website at this point. I just started it like a month ago, but that's a place to learn more about sessions that I do with people, the length, the cost, how they work over Zoom, and but feel free to reach out. There's even a way of booking a 15-minute phone call with me on my website, and we can talk about what you want to do and whether I'm the right person to do it with, because I'm good at what I'm good at, and I'm not good at what I'm not good at. Thank you, Jeannie, for putting that up. Look at this. We're ending right on time because I'm a Capricorn. Is everyone muted? I can't hear anyone's voices. You're not allowed to unmute yourselves. Have they locked you down? It's like lockdown. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to hear your voices. Yeah, I mean, I know you guys need to move on to something else, but that was such a pleasure. Jeannie, you got to tell me in the chat when I got to just get out of here, Jessica. Just say go.
No. It's all good, Jessica. Don't worry. I'm just reading the chat right now. We have a couple of questions. Can you see the chat?
Yes, I answered a bunch of questions.
All right, cool. So like, I think, I mean, if you got everything covered right there, otherwise we're all good. What time we need to right on time. So if nobody has any other question, we're about to be done. Thank you so much, Jessica, for doing that. That was a hell of a presentation. And for those who didn't get like the whole thing or whatever, everything is going to be available on YouTube with everything else after the event. And here, Genius.
Great, I'm so glad I wore so much makeup.
Actually, we have started uploading videos for past classes. Some of the ones from yesterday are now located on your schedules in the third column, where you're getting the Zoom meeting information to come into classes with. Now, once a video is available of that class, the Zoom link is replaced with a YouTube link. So there's some from yesterday that are starting to pop up on the schedule for those of you who might have missed a class. And this is your last opportunity to ask Jessica a question if you want to come on. We unmuted everyone, so you have the opportunity to unmute yourself directly and say hi to Jess if you want to. But thank you, Jessica, for everything as always. Fabulous class. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're very welcome. It was absolutely my pleasure. I was just responding to someone privately in chat. Thank you guys. Keep up the good work. Let's see how hot it is in Palm Springs right now. It's gone up 117.
Are you living there now, or is that?
No, I'm in Los Angeles, but I'm just here.
What the heck are you doing in Palm Springs?
Well, I just came for the weekend because it's Labor Day. Have some fun.
Get hot.
117.
You're already hot, Jessica. You don't need to get hotter.
Yeah, it's 111 here down in North County, San Diego.
Is it?
There's a little bit of breeze, so it's not too bad, but it's definitely hot. Like, and I have to admit, and that's something I never do, but I actually turned on the AC this morning. So.
Wow. Well, yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. All right. So thank you very much,
you,
Jessica.
guys.
It was a great class. And next class, you guys, is Mariana is going to be back in my kitchen and is going to do some barbecue tofu and some cookies as well. So we'll see you in a half hour. All right. See you guys. Thank you.
Okay.